Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today we have an episode with my new best friend. I can already tell I'm so excited to meet this person and for you to meet her as a guest of the show. But we're talking about innovative and ethical leadership. It sounds really important, and it kind of sounds like not a whole lot of people are doing it just from the title. So we're going to unpack that. But Shana Francesco, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. I appreciate it.
So let's just skip to the end before we get to the beginning.
Okay.
I was just asking where should we send people at the end of this episode, because I know they're going to love you, and you have a website that this word I've never seen before in my life, but it means something beautiful. So if you would please, pronounce the word and tell me what it means.
So Consonate is the name of my business. It took me 2 years I wrote down our company values. I created my company's values, which really were my values, right? And how I wanted to bring them into life inside of the organization. And then I needed the name that was going to carry all that was going to hold that. And I found the word Consonate. And it means to arrange or blend together skillfully as parts or elements put together in a harmonious, precisely appropriate, or elegant manner. And that's exactly what the goal of my work is to do, is for us to understand what is precisely appropriate for us as individuals, as organizations, and to be able to empower our culture around that, and be able to understand that we need a diverse array of individuals inside of our organization, operating as a bubble of life, as an ecosystem, enabled to enable and empower that and bring that into fruition in the world in a harmonious manner.
So I'm going to clip that, and that's going to be the new intro to this show, because you're spot on. That's the reason I created this podcast. That is our same belief in consulting with businesses, that, not everything is for you. It's whatever is precisely and appropriately for you in a harmonious manner. That's the name of the show. That's the name of our business architecture. And this is why you don't have to reciprocate this, but we are best friends at this point.
I'm in. Let's do it.
I love it. I love it. So let's dive in, though, because ethical and innovative leadership, everybody has heard those words. It's not like the word consonate. Like, everybody knows what those words mean.
However, everybody's definition of those words is different.
Yeah. What do they mean for you? I mean, how do you define this?
Yeah. And that's the thing that I learned. So I shared with you before we started that I was born into an abusive household and raised inside of an evangelical Christian cult. And don't worry, this is going to be important to this conversation. The thing is that I learned that when someone is unwilling to actually define something, to give you language, to tell you what it means, where they're always shifting that definition whenever it's convenient for them, it's about manipulation rather than actually engaging with one another in relationship, right? And so it's really important for me to define those terms. So ethical relationship and ethical leadership are deeply tied together. I believe that leadership is about having an ethical relationship with those we lead. And I posit in my work that all ethical relationship requires curiosity, respect, and accountability. And I, of course, define those things.
Yes, you do. And those are perfect definitions too. Do you see that in the workplace today? How would you rank us? Is this lacking? Is it abundant? I mean, where are we with this?
Pervasively, I do not see ethical relationships showing up in the workplace. And that's not condemnation. It's more an acknowledgement that most of us were never sat down and said and told, like, this is what relationship is, and this is what it requires. It was modeled for us, but in fact, what was modeled for us was more close to proximity rather than relationship, right? So people showed us what it is to be in proximity to the world around them, not actually in relationship. Relationship is wanting to know and understand. Like, I define curiosity as the desire to know something or someone as they are, not as we want them to be, right? And then respect has to balance out curiosity, because curiosity without respect is intrusive, and respect without curiosity is uneducated, right? And then accountability is taking responsibility for the impact of our actions on the people and the lives that have been and are being impacted, and then learning more and doing better, right? It ties right back to curiosity. And so all these things are deeply tied together, but no one sat me down and told me those things. It took me 14 years to figure it out, right? Because I left the cult and the abusive household at 26. And maybe it didn't take me all of those 14 years, but it's been 14 years, right? And 3 or 4 years ago is when the language finally clicked fully for me to recognize, oh, wait, actually the through line between all the really powerful, successful, profitable leaders that I have seen, and success is defined different ways for different people, but but when I see these organizations like Pixar and like Pal's Sudden Service and like Stewart's Shops and Gore and Associates, I see these organizations that are significantly innovating consistently and profitable, and their people stay there long term, right? Which also helps profitability because you're not losing money on turnover, right? When I see these organizations, these are the through lines. They might use different language than I do, but ultimately that's what it boils down to: is their cultures are founded and their leaders are invested in curiosity, respect, and accountability.
Does it go beyond the leaders though? Because those are phenomenal things to have in any organization. How do
Yes.
they bake it into all of their employees too?
So it becomes about setting intentions. It becomes about consistently communicating with the people around us, right? It's about what might feel to people like over communicating, right? Like, you're like, of course I'm sure we have the same intentions, but I'm actually certain we don't,
Mm.
right? So I'm certain, like, for instance, I just went to Ocean City, Maryland with my friend Jenna. And before we arrived, I took the time to say, this is what my current expectations are. This is the kind of clothing I'm planning on packing based on what my expectations are. What are your expectations? So I know if I need to adjust mine and also adjust what I'm packing, right? And that way, before we even arrived, there was already a set of expectations, right? And we can do that in a variety of ways that are small but impactful. We can start with the interview process, where we could provide imagery, maybe even a video of how someone's where they're going to park, where they're going to enter the building, who's going to greet them, the temperature of the room they're going to be interviewed in, whether or not they have control over that temperature, whether or not they have control over the light setting, right? Is the lights going to be super bright? So they're walking into this like, oh my gosh, everybody can see every inch of everything in my body. Is the chair that they sit in going to be one that has adjustable arms or not? Can they see that in the photos, right? Is it something where there's a fan in the room and there's ability, because we tend to sweat when we're nervous, right? Is there this level of intentionality where we're embracing people's humanity, understanding of their sensory needs, so on and so forth? Are we baking that in to the way that we're showing up as an organization and the way we're ushering people into our organization?
That's just all of that blows my mind, because I think a lot of people would hear that and say, this is completely ridiculous. People are human beings. Why does your friend Jenna need to know what you're wearing and what you're packing? On the
Mhm.
flip side of that is, wow, you have just taken all of the emotional anxiety, whether spoken about or not, and eliminated it from the
Mhm.
conversation.
Yes. It's about honoring my own humanity and someone else's. And here's the thing that I pose to people. Do you want to experience the discomfort of being vulnerable enough to set expectations? And you have to practice that in your personal life, right? I can't, as a leader, learn how to set expectations if I'm not practicing that in my personal life. That's the personal is the professional is the political.
Mhm.
They're all deeply tied together. And what we empower in our personal lives is what we empower in the world around us in general. So if we're not practicing it in ourselves, how many other people do we think are actually, right? And then that's what's normalized in our society. And then that's what's normalized in the people we hire to lead us, right? So either we're willing to be uncomfortable enough and tap into our own humanity to really connect with other people and truly be in relationship with them, or we're going to be uncomfortable when conflict arises, and that relationship could end up dissolving entirely, and we end up lonely, hurt, upset, right? Rather than working through and learning how to regulate ourselves as people, as leaders, and say, this is my intention. Does this align with your intentions? Right? And sure, maybe it doesn't. And maybe you lose out on that candidate in that moment, but maybe there's another candidate who's better fitted and who's going to stay with your organization long term. Or maybe that candidate needs to work at another organization for a year or two and come back. Right? You don't know what the future holds, but when we set out our intention, we say, this is who I am, this is how I show up in the world, we're going to find really well-suited people for our lives and for our organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. You said an important word there that I want to explore a little bit. You said conflict. Now, conflict is important and it's necessary
Yes.
for growth. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But the difference between conflict and combat is a choice. And
Mhm.
also, I think the combat piece comes from whether it's days, months, years of not fully understanding where a person is coming from and you judging them from your perspective,
Yes.
and then you have this big blow up. So
Yes.
does this sort of a model where even if it's just leadership demonstrating this for their team, and then it kind of exudes into the rest of the organization,
Yeah.
does that eliminate almost the combativeness to
Yeah.
conflict?
Yes, I would primarily at some point in time, there's going to be a miscommunication. Somebody's going to have a bad day. There's going to be a more combative or tense moment, right? But when we have consistently come from a place of communicating our expectations and intentions to one another, when those moments arise, they're going to be less frequent, and they're also going to be less tense or less intense because they're not going to have happened as often. Relationships kind of escalate, right? And so when you have combative moment building on top of one another, now you have people looking to leave. Now you have that tension affecting everyone around them inside of that organization. Now people are walking on eggshells. That's not good for productivity. That's not good for innovation. That's good for getting people to leave. Right. And so when we instead can take a step back and we can set intentions and expectations, and also set intentions and expectations for conflict, the way we're going to handle it, we're going to come to it from a place of community rather than a place of pitting people against one another, right? Us versus them, right? And instead, we're going to have a group of people who act as mentors around the people who are, it's typically one or two. It can expand beyond that, right? But there's typically contention between one, two, or three individuals or groups of people. When we have a group of people around them that's operating as a mentor for them to help them move through and work through that conflict instead of leaving them to the wolves and making them feel like they're in it on their own, it becomes a very different thing, right? It becomes community and advocacy and working together to solve a problem rather than leaving people out on their own to feel like they have to fend for themselves. Those are very different things.
Yeah, absolutely. The guidance through it is so important.
Yeah.
I'm curious for your background too. I mean, it's been 14 years, but I think a lot of people have an unhealthy past, trauma, whatever we want to call it, that's not fully resolved or it still presents itself. So
Sure.
for you, manipulation was the theme, right? For 26 years.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
someone like that is to walk into an environment like this, where you're saying, you're painting the picture of what even the interview process would look like,
Mhm.
is that perceived the wrong way from somebody
It could
potentially?
be. It could be. I think what what we're doing in that moment though is showing people that they don't need to arm themselves or protect themselves. They don't need to come into it in a self-defensive posture.
Mhm.
Instead, they can come to the table as themselves, and we're coming to the table as ourselves, and we are seeking to not have power over you, but to empower you. And that's a very different posture, right? Now that person isn't protective and they're much less likely to be triggered because they're cared for genuinely. And when there's miscommunication or when boundaries are violated, now they know they're safe to come to you and say, hey, this was the intention that was set. but I don't think that's what was actually fulfilled. This is the harm that I experienced instead. And then that person can say, okay, well, now I can touch back to my intentions, right? If I do something, Brandon, and my intention is not to harm you, but I do end up harming you, and you come to me and say, actually, that harmed me. Now I can say, okay, I set this intention. It was not to harm you, right? Where did I go wrong? What information did I not gather in order to make sure that I actually could fulfill that intention? Did I get enough information? Did I seek counsel from enough people? Did I actually talk to you about whether or not my intention would be harmful to you or not? Or the way I was going to react or act on that intention? Did I talk to you about whether or not it was going to hurt you before I just moved forward, deciding it wasn't going to because my intentions were good? Right? So there's all this conversation that then can be sparked that becomes really powerful because it's back to curiosity, right? It's back to the foundation of all relationship. And I also posit in my work that innovation is a reimagining of relationship. So it is in sitting in curiosity and considering reimagining a relationship that massive innovation can happen. Because as we're innovating our relationship, right, we're also innovating the way that we could show up for our clients, the way that we could show up for potential clients, for new markets, so on and so forth. We're learning how to navigate those moments so we're better informed when we move forward, right? Because again, the personal is the political, is the professional, it's all the same. So as we're learning those skills and getting better at them, it's driving our ability to get better at innovating in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking for the people who are listening or watching. Thank you. First of all, we love you. But if this isn't the current culture they have in their business,
Yeah.
You gave examples before of even massive companies who do have this present and they're more profitable, they're happier, their people stay longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have 97 studies on companies where this is the case, and you can just prove it over and over and over, which is true. But what's the first step if you want to go from wherever you are right now, whatever your company looks like right now, to get closer to this culture of respect, ethics, innovation?
Yeah.
What do you have to do first?
You have to start with curiosity. You have to invest in your own curiosity first and practicing that. Because anything you want to be good at, you have to practice. And that doesn't mean one time or two times. That means consistently. And the way that I practice it in my own life, and this seems really simple, but it's the simple actions that most people overlook that are actually the most profound and the most powerful. I go for walks. That's not the profound part, but
I've done that before. That's cool.
Yeah. So I go for walks outside, and one of my favorite practices is to find something either I don't know anything about yet, or even more powerful, find something I think I know. I've learned so much about poison ivy, about dandelions, about fuzzy caterpillars, about all kinds of things that I have lived in proximity to and think I know, but I don't actually know. And I seek to learn 3 new facts, 3 new positive facts about the way that living thing operates and benefits the ecosystem it exists in. Now, sometimes I find out like certain kinds of honeysuckles are invasive and they don't really benefit the ecosystem, right? But there are native kinds and indigenous kinds of honeysuckles, so on and so forth. So I learn these things. And the thing that profoundly shifts things for me is like learning about dandelions and how they benefit the soil and how they help soil erosion, and they add calcium into the soil, which is a necessary nutrient, and they do so many cool things, and the whole thing's edible, right? There's so many things for us to learn about the world around us, and when we start practicing that, and especially learning 3 new positive things, it starts to do things to our brain that gets us used to and comfortable in practicing approaching people and the living world around us with curiosity, looking to understand the ways that person benefits the world around them.
Wow, that's powerful. And if
Yeah.
more people took that shift,
Yes.
we wouldn't have a country that looks the way it looks. We'll just say that.
Correct. Yes.
Enough said.
Enough.
I'm willing to do that on most things. Spiders. I'm never going to think those are positive. They're not. They're just
used to think that. I used to think that, but I've made my peace with spiders, and I now name them. And that actually helps me to make friends with them easier. They're like
Oh, I don't know about
Susie
that.
and Bob, and like for some reason they're mostly I'm the ones that in my house, I know I mostly name boy names. I don't know why. But it's some like weird name unless I see them carrying an egg sack, and then I'm like, that's Barbara for sure. But
And Barbara needs to be evicted because I don't want her little babies in my
well,
house.
okay, so again, agree. I'm not letting Barbara birth her babies in the house, right? But I am, and I'll capture Barbara and put Barbara outside. She might still die, but she has a fighting chance, right? Um, the thing is that it has helped me to understand the benefit of spiders and to feel connected to them by giving them a name and being like, okay, Fred, as long as you stay in the corner and you aren't above my bed, we're cool. You know what I mean? We're cool. Stay in the corner over there and we're cool. You eat the bugs, great. That's your job. My job is to keep you away from my bed.
I love it. Since we're best friends now, Shayna, I will try that. I will
Okay.
approach the world with curiosity, and I will be willing to try that with spiders. Not the big
Okay.
ones yet, but I'll start with the
No.
little
Oh
ones.
God, no big ones. I saw coconut crabs on a video the other day and it was on someone's
Nope.
toilet. And I said, that is a gigantic spider. You can't convince me otherwise. And I would run screaming.
We do have, for some reason, a large audience in Australia and New Zealand. Y'all are crazy with the bugs that you.
I know
I'm
the
not there
hunter
yet.
spiders. I mean, they're like hunter spiders are so sweet. And I'm like, are they? Okay, but I'm not putting it in my hand.
Nope, not for me. Anyway, I'm now significantly uncomfortable on this episode, but
Yeah.
I'm going to get through it because I'm going to be curious.
Yeah.
And you have opened my eyes to a whole new way to approach life, leadership, business, all of these things.
Appreciate
Shayna, this is fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
But that was the first step, curiosity. The second step is, I vote. Go to your website, check out
Yeah.
your newsletter. You tell me, where should the listener go for step
Yeah.
2?
So I would say website. I would say next step is website. Subscribe to my email list. I tried to have someone write my email blasts for me. That didn't work out. I write every single one of them myself. I love to share great information and stories with people. So that's a great place to go and find out where I'm speaking, what I'm doing, learn about more of my consulting and what upcoming workshops I have going on. So that's a great place to go. I agree.
I love it. Fantastic. Okay, I can't end the episode without asking the most important question. And we believe here at What If that powerful questions get powerful answers. So I want to know from you to the listener, on this path of everything we're talking about, curiosity, innovation, ethical leadership, what is a powerful question that a business leader needs to ask themselves in order to move their career, their business, and their culture forward?
Do I want to be right or do I want to be successful?
Ouch. Okay, that is indeed a powerful question. I like that one. Shayna, thank you for being here.
No
For
problem.
those of
Thanks
you
for having me.
watching and listening, except for the spider part, I hope you enjoyed the whole episode, and I hope you're not as uncomfortable as me. Shayna's a rock star. Go to her website, go check it out, and subscribe. We want to see you back on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch. We'll see you there.